Good evening, good afternoon, everyone around the world. Thank you so much for being with us today in this very complicated night here in Israel. We appreciate deeply that you're taking the time to be with us. My name is Sasha Reutemann. I'm the CEO of the Combat Antisemitism Movement. I'm speaking to you from Tel Aviv, Israel. 4 hours ago, I spent a full hour in a surrealistic situation. At home with my wife, 3 kids, rocket alert sounded. Our phone started ringing. Notification explode. We run to the bomb shelter with Ari, 5 years old, Daniela, who will celebrate her birthday tomorrow of 3 years old, and Jonathan, 2 months old. From the siren that we heard, it moved to the explosion, a bit far from us. It sounded like an interception of the Iron Dome, but then it came closer and closer. Then we were scared, huge blast, explosions very close to our house. The rockets start falling, not far from here, about 1 kilometer, less than a mile. But what we do, what we speak, and what we say to our children, because they need to feel secure, they don't understand what's happening. They're asking questions, they see the fear in our face, they hear the sirens and the phone ringing. Tonight, Iran fired 181 ballistic missiles at Israel, everywhere in the country, targeting military targets, civilian targets, everything they could target. But Israel was prepared, first by the population to run to shelter or bunkers. Second, the air defense, which is looking like a movie. To see the interception in the air, in the sky, it's something you cannot imagine how it looks like. The White House reported 2 hours ago that the US Armed Forces coordinated the air defense of Israel together with the Israeli Defense Forces. So as an Israeli, I want first to thank our allies, the US Army and the US Forces, for standing by us, standing with us and be with us in this complicated time. To provide a longer perspective, as we speak right now, the IDF is operating in Gaza to continue destroy Hamas facilities and to fight to bring back the 101 hostages back home. We have a ground operation that we're going to hear from Sarit Zehavi very soon happening in Lebanon to fight Hezbollah. And 2 hours ago, 2 terrorists infiltrated Israel from Hebron and killed 8 people in the south of Tel Aviv. That's just the past 4 hours in Israel. We're going to have today speakers that will try in the next 30 minutes and 40 minutes, if we are very good, to explain you from the tactical perspective to the strategical perspective what's happening right now. Israel moved 2 weeks ago from a diplomatic conversation to a military operation in the north of Israel to try to stop Hezbollah. And I think that everyone saw what happened to Nasrallah and to the Radwan forces and also to Hezbollah in general. To start this conversation and the briefing, I would like to invite Sarit Zehavi. She's the founder and the president of ALMA, a research center specialized in Israeli security and challenges in the northern border. Sarit served 15 years in Israel Defense Forces with a specialty in military intelligence. She's probably today the #1 expert in everything that is happening in the northern border of Israel. She's living in the north. She's speaking right now from our bomb shelter. So we are grateful to have you with us. And I think that you have seen everything in the past 12 months of aggression in your city, in your villages. And we love to hear what's happening right now in the perspective of the operation on the ground, because it's a little bit complicated to track from the media. So we love for everyone here online, you can tell us what's happening both on the military operation of the IDF, but also what Hezbollah has been doing in the past, I will say 2-3 weeks. You are unmuted. As you unmute, if anyone has a question, please write in the chat the question so we can have our speakers, and we have very important speaker that will be able to address your question. So don't hesitate to write question. Please, Sarit.
I'm saying we'll describe Hezbollah and the IDF, what they had done in the past few weeks. I just want to say as an opening that I felt great solidarity with your introduction, because what you described of this afternoon to most citizens of Israel is the daily reality for the people of the north in the past year. We run for shelter, we hear the blast, we hear it coming closer and closer, and then we can see it from the balcony, including today. This is an unbearable situation until, if I'm trying to describe Israel's moving from defense to offense, until the point that we move to offense, which I mark the date as September 22nd, we had more than 3,000 attacks of Hezbollah to Israel's north with rockets, drones, and anti-tank missiles. Anti-tank missiles cannot be even intercepted by Iron Dome. In each attack, there could be 10 missiles or 80 missiles. So it's not 3,000 attacks is not the amount of projectiles. It should be much, much more. By the way, in the past few weeks, of course, during everything that Israel has done that you see in the graph here, the amount of attacks by Hezbollah increased dramatically, like doubled. In the past week, we had around 1,000 rockets that were launched to Israel by Hezbollah. It's less than what we evaluated that will happen, but it is much more than what was happening here in the past year. I want to say something about the implications of all the incidents that you see in my timeline. I think that great damages were caused to Hezbollah in the past few weeks, but at the same time, the amount of fire proves that there is a long way to go. We caused damages with regard to command and control capabilities, with regard to communication inside the organization, with regard even to the image of Hezbollah as the leading asset of Iran in the Middle East. There were celebrations in different places of the Middle East after the killing of Nasrallah. We created, I don't believe there is ever a vacuum, but we did create a crisis of leadership of Hezbollah, since Nasrallah was a prominent leader, almost a partner in Iran, very centralist. He was killed with his most closest advisor he was working with. This was the decision-making cabinet of Hezbollah. We killed a few others in the leadership, like Fouad Shukur and Ibrahim Akil. And also with regard to the issue of Radwan brigades, Ibrahim Akil was killed along with 15 commanders of the Radwan brigades, which is the elite unit of Hezbollah that received the mission to invade into the state of Israel. All in all, it's been 14 seniors of Hezbollah and 2,000 targets, and you saw the warehouses exploded in Lebanon and creating a secondary blast because of the rockets that were stored inside automatically being launched at the Lebanese themselves. But today, right before the Iranian attack and the attack in Tel Aviv, the terrorist attack in Tel Aviv, something else happened. IDF published its findings from the past year, and it published that in the past year, IDF carried out tens of raids, of secret commando raids into Lebanon, not deep into Lebanon, but next to the border, to try to eliminate the Radwan brigade's capabilities as much as possible. And it published the really huge amount of anti-tank missiles, RPGs, personal arms, binoculars, vests, whatever, for infantry, whatever equipment you can imagine for infantry forces that were fully prepared to invade. Tunnels as well. Videos of IDF soldiers, of commando forces of the IDF entering into these tunnels next to the border. Really amazing operations. And what we learned out of that is that since everything that was brought and everything that was revealed, it was not enough after all the past year just to neutralize the Radwan brigades from either airstrikes or these small commando operations. Something else is needed. And this is how we got to the conclusion that we need to go into Lebanon to clear the areas next to the border in order to bring the people back home. So this conclusion was made only after that much of equipment was brought from Lebanon, was catched by these small operations. And what I'm presenting now here is a map that was found in one of these places. I don't know if it's in the tunnel or in the children's room, that IDF gave few examples of where they found the equipment. This is a map of part of the area of the border, which is the coast area. This is the city of Nahariya over here. And this is the map of the plan, of offensive plan of Hezbollah to occupy the Galilee. And for me, I want to involve here for a moment a personal feeling, because looking at this map, it's one of these moments that you as a researcher understand that you are researching your murderer. Because I live in this area. And they were planning to massacre Israelis just as Hamas did. By the way, with the equipment, we found a lot of video cameras. They were planning to film it. They were planning, according to their own publications, to trap civilians to become human shields. So the Israeli operation, or the Israeli offensive to Lebanon that started last night, the ground incursion, its mission is to neutralize this. And the airstrikes, their mission is to neutralize the strategic threat Hezbollah posed to the state of Israel. I think in both cases we did a lot of work, as revealed today also with the first mission, but there is much more work to be done, and it's going to be a long way. There are a lot of successes. The killing of Nasrallah was highly important, but we're going to go a long way.
Thank you, Sarit. I would like to ask a question, and we move to a few more questions already received. So we see that Nasrallah was murdered, and there is a lot of hope, at least in the media, that something will change in the Middle East, and probably that Hezbollah has been neutralized. This is kind of the narrative that we could hear, but it looks like Hezbollah has more than 80,000 military members from their force. So is Hezbollah right now neutralized? What we've seen since Nasrallah has been neutralized, like what's happening right now with Hezbollah?
No, it doesn't feel like, I wish I could say that. It doesn't feel like Hezbollah was neutralized. I would even say that I don't even feel that the decision-making process was completely neutralized, because the fact that we see less amount of rockets can indicate that they have actually economy munition, and they did suffer damages to the rockets arsenal, huge damages to the rockets arsenal, but it was not completely eliminated. And what they are doing now is calculating the amount of rockets they want to launch every day in order not to spend all of them too quickly and to continue to preserve the war of attrition. By the way, I think this is the case with Iran as well. They understand the achievement of sending thousands of Israelis to shelters. They understand the achievement of creating chaos in Israel, of disturbing the regular life here, the economy, closing the airport, etc. Both Iran and Hezbollah. And if we're talking about risks and opportunities, I think there are a lot of opportunities in everything that has happened here in the past 10 days. The killing of Nasrallah, the pagers, the ground incursion, it gave a lot of hope to us people of the north that finally Israel is defending its civilians. But at the same time, there is a risk, and the risk is that Hezbollah will not be reluctant to go to a diplomatic arrangement, and will get the orders from Iran to preserve a low-scale war of attrition, a few tens of rockets or 100 rockets every day, again and again and again and again. It means that it will not recover, but at the same time, it means that we cannot stop the war. And I truly hope that it will not happen, that the blow to Iran and Hezbollah will be that hard that they will have to ask for a ceasefire and ask for a diplomatic arrangement.
I would like to bring a third speaker right now, if we can have also Ori Katzir. with a former advisor to the Prime Minister, Ehud Barak. It was the Chief of Staff. By the way, that is a very relevant Chief of Staff since he was responsible to remove the IDF forces from Lebanon. So well, that's a historical part that we are backing here again this year. I would love to come back to you, Sarit, later on about the question about the human rights, the human shields of Hezbollah in Lebanon, and when we see civilian casualties, what is the story behind that? But Ori, we have one question that is coming here from a few people. I will combine it in one question. Do we see appetite from Israel to retaliate right now against Iran, or what we should expect to see following tonight 181 missiles that targeted Israel, in your opinion, working with Prime Minister and Chief of Staff, and how you see the next step following what happened tonight?
Okay, I will respond to that relating to some of Sarit's sentences before me. Hezbollah is a terror organization. It's actually an Lebanese-Iranian division, and it's not eliminated. It's not just a terror infrastructure. This is a whole idea of Shiite Islam combating against infidels, taking over a Middle East that was taken away from Shiite Islam a long time ago. Now, we need to, I'm zooming out of the very useful military information that Sarit supplied just now, just to understand what's going on here. Iran is trying to extend its influence in the Middle East and create itself as a regional power. And we have to understand that if they want to, in their own eyes, if they want to do that, they have to be a leading force of Islam. In Islam, there are Shiites and Sunnis, and a lot of times the animosity between those two factions of Islam is much greater than the one between Muslims and non-Muslims. So they want, one, Shiite Islam take over any other form of Islam in the Middle East. Two, they will prove that by, one of the things they're going to prove that through is by being the first nuclear power in the Middle East. And the second thing, eliminate Israel. To do that, they have to surround Israel with their own allies. They are trying to create sometimes we call it the Shiite crescent, okay? Shiite Iran, it's about 80%, 90% Shiites over there. Then another influence zone in Iraq, about 65% Shiites over there. Then in Syria, which is not Shiite, but is governed by a Shiite family, the Assad family, for more than 50 years. And then Lebanon, more than 40% of the people there are Shiites, and they are the fastest growing group over there. And so this way, they partly surround Israel. They do have Sunni proxies that actually are sponsored by them, such as Hamas, okay, and Hezbollah in Lebanon, and some militias in Iraq and Yemen, and so on and so forth. All these attack Israel right now in order to show that the Shiite axis, so to speak, in the Middle East overcomes anybody else. Now, the thing you ask me is, how can we overcome that, or how can we handle that, or combat that? I can tell you my idea, and my idea is not necessarily the one that is shared by other leaders in Israel and the United States, but it should be noticed. I think that Israel and the United States should form an alliance, a regional alliance. I call it MITO, Middle East Treaty Organization. You didn't miss that. This is very similar to NATO, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. NATO was a group of countries that were bordering the Soviet influence zone in Europe, okay, and stopping them from going forward into Western Europe. That moderate Sunni countries, pro-Western countries in the Middle East, anti-Iranian, like Egypt, like Jordan, like the United Arab Emirates, like Saudi Arabia, should be the front to that one, to MITO. Behind that, there should be forces like Britain, United States, and of course, Israel, okay? Now, these countries should be coordinated in their diplomatic actions and defense efforts regarding the Tehran axis.
Mr. Katsir, I like to start because it sounds a little bit like the Abraham Accords when you heard that tonight even 2 rockets were intercepted in the sky by Jordan, another country that take part in that. So I see a similarity between the Abraham Accords and what you're offering. So probably going and supporting the Abraham Accords as one of the regional solution for the threats that we have from Iran, Hezbollah, and others. Probably this is a solution, no?
the Abrahamic Accords were definitely a good start. On the face of it, the Abrahamic Accords are meant to normalize the relationships, mainly the economic relationships between Israel and some Arab states such as Morocco, the UAE, Saudi Arabia, and so on and so forth. But below the ground, there is combined defense effort, okay, shared by those countries to handle Iran. This is not on the ground, on the face of it, because those countries have a problem of public opinion, which is sometimes anti-Israeli, although their national interest is anti-Iranian. So not everything can be done out in public like it was, for example, in the NATO days versus the Soviet Union. But absolutely, the Abrahamic Accords should be the start of it. The problem is that many of the Abrahamic Accords normalization efforts were stopped during or slowed down after the October 7th events when Hamas attacked Israel. So back then it was quite difficult.
I'd like to probably come back, and I don't know, maybe Sarit or Ori can answer to something that you said. So Iran is a Shia country. In Gaza and the Palestine are Sunni, right? So all this relationship has been built, and the support of Iran got to Gaza to build Hamas and to reinforce Hamas, since they are totally different, at least, entities in some ways, right?
Yes, are you asking me?
I don't know
Yes.
who has an answer. Maybe Sarit has an answer, because
yes, I can.
I have a
answer.
slide.
You have a slide.
answer,
Let's go to the slide. Let's go to the slide of Sarit.
Go with it, Sarit.
Okay, that's the slide. Very good. Let's hear about that.
A good question. I have a slide. This slide is based on an Iranian propaganda, actually, that presented a joint operation room that all proxy militias of Iran are planning the ground invasion to Israel. This video was published in April 2023. It didn't happen, but when you take all the different militias that appeared in the video, you put them on one slide, you get the campaign that we just have. The only one that were not active during this campaign, or I would say hardly active in this campaign, are the Syrian militias. And they are very much involved in smuggling for Hezbollah, and there is time for them as well, I'll put it this way. They are fully prepared. Each of these militias is active in the current campaign in different ways. And I think this is very important to understand the idea of 7 fronts. And also, as you said, a partnership here between Sunnis and Shiites against Israel. They can fight each other brutally for other reasons. But Iran was very clever to bring Hamas on board in the past decade and to equip it and provide a lot of munition to Hamas. And the result was seen in October 7th. Yes. I think I will let Uri add.
No, but I see here the 7 fronts are very interesting. So Yemen with the Houthis, I think the world is watching them. We have US military forces there countering the Houthis. Gaza, we have learned about the Islamic Jihad and Hamas. Judea and Samaria, that we don't see every day in the news, but every day we have terrorist attack coming out of Judea and Samaria with Hamas presence and other groups. Then Iraq, obviously, Syria and Lebanon that we see right now. So
and the 7th front is cyber.
And the cyber. Okay, great. So that's
yes.
Or you comment, and then I have a question for Eric or to speak.
Just to end, to put one more brick on that wall that Sarit just now built for us. There is another country that is very important here, but is not mentioned. They are supposedly not part of the whole conflict, but they are targeted by Iran all the time. This is Jordan. Jordan is the buffer zone between Israel and Syria, or Israel and Iraq, Israel and farther away Iran. So this is a big buffer zone, and Jordan and Israel, once again, below the surface, have common interests in battling Iran. But more than 70% the Jordanian population are from Palestinian descent. So the government is anti-Iranian. The Palestinian originated population many times has pro-Iranian, and the Iranians are trying to use them and in order to build an infrastructure to throw away the Jordanian government and the Jordanian king. And this is something that usually is not discussed on daily media, but it's there all the time. And Israel does tremendous efforts in order to collaborate with the Jordanian security services in order to protect themselves from any Iranian penetration. So we have to put that into consideration as well. Okay.
So I would like to introduce to Eric Rappaport also an analysis that can provide us also another line of understanding of what's happening right now and where Israel is going. And I think that is very important because what we have seen in October 7, we have seen an Israel on the defense. We've seen Israel not prepared to the Middle East, I will say, mentality. And right now we see Israel changing his strategy, changing his state of mind. And I'd love to hear from you, what is the change that we see tonight? And I think that tonight is also another game changer. What's going to happen, in your opinion, in the strategy that Israel is taking following this attack and the 181 rockets that happened? So what is the strategy right now?
Well, thank you, Sasha. It's good to be here with you in this prominent panel. If I could just speak from a policy point of view, I'd like to say that while it's important to have our Western allies helping us militarily, it's also very important that they understand the bigger picture. Until now, one of the things that's kept the Iranian regime and their proxies in power is the fact that the West looks at them as a point of stability. They offer stability in the Middle East, and they're placating the so-called Arab street. But what we've seen, especially with Israel's show of force in the last week, is that more and more people are coming out in support of Israel everywhere across the Middle East, and they'd like Israel to continue and give them that freedom. So it's a kind of a chink in the armor, if so to speak, in that mentality. And Western governments are very slow to change in their policies. Unfortunately, it takes time, and they need to understand this, that this is the Arab street wants to see this. They want to see this change come across. And as Ori mentioned, perhaps have a NATO across and more freedoms like the Abraham Accords across the Middle East.
Yes, thank you. I'd like to go back. I promised to have a question to Sarit about the strategy of Hezbollah right now, how they use human shield, how they use the Lebanese population. And I think we heard incredible work done by the IDF spokesperson in Arabic, calling on the Lebanese population to leave southern Lebanon, to leave Beirut, to leave Daria. I think it's the first time that we see calls like that on social media directly from Israel to the Lebanese people to leave their houses because they are places of target. So we love to hear about that.
First time since 2006.
Yes, first time 2006, but first time on social media. In 2006, I was myself an IDF soldier in the Nahal Brigade. Social media didn't exist.
Look, we knew that once IDF will attack in Lebanon, there will be collateral damage since Hezbollah was using the Lebanese as human shields. This is part of the tactic to hide the rockets inside their homes or under their homes. We saw in the past 18 years since the previous war how Hezbollah gradually deployed it inside the towns and villages of South Lebanon, Beirut as well. I witnessed that on uniforms, and I witnessed that when in the Alma Center. I saw this happening, how they analyze the terrain and build each village as a military compound. And eventually, collateral damage in international law is legal under 3 conditions. The condition of that the target must be a military target. Well, if you hide the rockets in your home, it is a military target. Warning the population, which this is what you talked about, calling the population to evacuate, that's warning the population. That's why it is being done, okay? All the different narratives around that, it's not the issue. It's just in order to save their lives. And here I must say that there are many people in the IDF, in the Israeli security authorities, that their mission is to rescue enemies' population lives. It's a lot of resources that the state of Israel invests in Gaza and in Lebanon on both fronts. This is happening, and the result of that is the evacuation. The Lebanese listened to us, and I'm very happy for that. It means that many lives were saved. The third condition is proportionality. And it's a sneaky one because unfortunately, we are being judged by social media that look at the amount of casualties, but we are not judged by the reality that what Hezbollah wanted to achieve with these huge amounts of rockets that it had hidden inside these villages, and with Radwan brigades that are already discussed. And it's the same, by the way, with the Iranians. I think that it's time for everybody to agree that once our enemies want to destroy us, and they are building their military capabilities, and they are saying that again and again and again, and they already have military capabilities or striving to build them, we should stop them. And what is happening now in Lebanon is like a clear difference between what happens when Israel is being surprised to what happened when Israel is not being surprised and Israel is taking the initiative and had a year to prepare. It saves a lot of Israelis' life, and actually it's also saved a lot of Lebanese life, because we know exactly where Hezbollah is, and we can evacuate the population, and we can do so many things that enable us to conduct this war much more wisely.
Yes. So Sarit, what we hear from you twice today is, on one hand, the Hamas strategy has been built on Hezbollah strategy with the infiltration plan that you have shown at the map. By the way, the map that was declassified, I think that about 2-3 hours ago by the IDF. So it's a very fresh map that you probably haven't seen yet in the media, and you're going to see it tomorrow morning. And secondly, is the same use of civilian population within urban area and civilian area that we have seen in Gaza, and right now we are seeing back in Lebanon. The only thing that is different is that Hezbollah doesn't control every house, so we see more population that can live, and Lebanon is not close like Gaza, so we see really the population living.
Right.
That's probably explain a lot of the images.
That's an advantage, because Lebanon has more open areas. Lebanon is bigger. Lebanon has different populations of areas that Hezbollah, that the population can evacuate to. But at the same time, now the opponents of Hezbollah are being more bravely speaking, and not even welcoming the Muslim Shiites that are evacuating. And we see more clashes between these populations inside Lebanon. Interesting to see how the internal arena in Lebanon will develop around that.
Since we are out of time, I promised to end on time. So what are we going to do right now? We're going to have a statement by Natalie Sanadaji about what's happening in Iran right now from the Persian population. Then we're going to allow those that needs to go to disconnect. And if the speaker have more time, we're going to allow you to stay to get a more direct question from people here online, because we see that we have a lot of questions. So Natalie, she's Persian American. She's running a very global and big coalition of diaspora Iranians fighting against the Iranian regime. And when Nasrallah was killed, we see a change right now that's happening in Iran. Do you think, Natalie, that Iran has the capacity right now, with the strike that we're going to see probably tonight, and the IDF, the head of the Air Force of Israel, announced 2 hours ago that the IDF will strike in the Middle East everywhere tonight? What we should expect to see in Iran in the next week, in your opinion?
I think what we're going to see from the Iranian people living within Iran is, number one, them trying to get away from the areas that they know are unsafe, which the government and military will probably try to stop them from doing. Because as we see from Hamas, which is just a proxy of the Islamic regime of Iran, they like to use their own people as human shields. So unfortunately, I think we will see bloodshed in Iran. As the daughter of not only the Jewish diaspora, but also the Iranian diaspora, I see the Iranian people as my brothers and sisters, just as I see all the people in Israel as my brothers and sisters. To see any bloodshed is unfortunate and sad, but the Iranian regime has to be stopped. And as someone who's been speaking out about this war from the very moment October 7th happened, from the moment that I escaped the hands of Hamas, the most messages I have received of hope and of support and of love are from the Iranian people, either within Iran or those who had to escape because of the regime. I see a lot of support from the Iranian people, and I think they know when they say, I just got a message today from an Iranian man who was born in Iran and is now living outside of Iran because he had to escape the hands of the regime. He said, I hope the Israeli army destroys the Iranian government. And he said that he hopes to see a free Iran soon, and he knows better than anyone that this probably means that there will be bloodshed within Iran. It's very, very unfortunate that this has to happen, but
Natalie, I think that I don't know if people can see the picture, but you sent me this picture earlier today. If you're able to say a few words about the picture here.
this is kind of the Iranian people showing that for the first time in a very long time, they see a beacon of hope, and they see Israel as their guide in that hope. This war didn't start, I always try to explain to people that this war did not start on October 7th. This war did not start a year before with the death of Mahsa Amini. This war has been going on for a very long time, and the Iranian people have been oppressed for a very long time. They're not part of their regime, and they're taking to the streets, and they finally feel hopeful. They're thanking the Israeli government for helping them. For the first time in years, they see that maybe they will become free from the hands of the regime.
Thank you, Natalie. So what we see, and we'll start summarizing what we have here today. We have a front. We have the 7 fronts that was described by Sarit, that today Israel is fighting at. We have soldiers defending our borders everywhere. We have our military fighting everywhere with the support of our allies, and I think that this is very important. Israel is not alone. We have the British, we have the Americans, we have the French that are here on the defense level. We don't know yet, to the question that we receive right now, what Israel will do tonight, but the head of the Air Force promised to retaliate. And what we need to know is a change of policy. What Iran did tonight to Israel was something that crossed the line of the acceptable normal warfare, and Israel will launch probably a big campaign. Now, we're going to see different scenarios. We're going to see the scenarios of Natalie, to see the Iranian population revolting and seeing an opportunity. Will Israel attack the nuclear capacity of Iran is a question that we don't know yet, but that's an opportunity. And I think that one of the most important change in the strategy of Israel that everyone should probably understand is Israel was afraid, and Jared Kushner spoke about it beautifully. And this is the point I think that is the most important. Israel has been afraid to retaliate against Iran because of Hezbollah in front of us with a 160,000 rocket pointed at Israel. They were protecting Iran from our own borders. At the moment we destroy, we neutralize Nasrallah, we neutralize the Iranian regime, then the direct conflict with Iran is possible. And maybe this is an opportunity to change the Middle East. And this is the question that the allies of Israel should be asking themselves. Do we have a moment of opportunity in front of us? And if yes, what we should do to create a Middle East free of hatred, a Middle East when the Abrahamic Accords will lead the way to this Middle East. So I think this is a big question we're asking ourselves. Now, it's time to end this briefing. So if the speakers are willing to stay for a few more questions, so definitely we can stay. Those that are online, and hopefully you have other things to do, so we are here. The Combat Antisemitism Movement is happy to work with you, to elaborate more, to do more briefing. Feel free to go on our website to register to a newsletter to get more information from us, and definitely we're going to be able to provide any answers. So right now it's a moment to say thank you to everyone, and if the speaker wants to stay for 1 more minute, we let those that needs to go to disconnect, and then we're going to take a few more questions that we have right now. That's okay for everyone here online? Great. So we have a first question. I don't know who wants to take it, but where Egypt in all of this? And probably the other side is Turkey as member of NATO that was mentioned before, but we have the Hamas leadership that was based in Turkey for many times. I don't know who wants to go for this one.
Egypt, on the face of it, have the same interest with Israel. Egypt is quite worried about Iranian influence inside Egypt. The Muslim Brotherhood, which is a very strong political entity in Egypt, not just a military power, but also a very influential political movement, is partly sponsored by Iran. And the Muslim Brotherhood was strong enough to reach power in 2011, I think, for a year and a half. So they are quite worried. Egypt suffers Iranian-sponsored terrorism within Sinai and other parts of Egypt, but Egypt has a very anti-Israeli public opinion. So once again, they are collaborating with Israel in terms of sharing intelligence and military and political evaluations and so on. But they can't go on public and say, go on Israel, strike in Lebanon as much as you want. They are not here, okay? Besides that, the the personal relationship between the Egyptian president, Sisi, and Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu are nearly not existent. They spoke a few times on the phone, they met a few times, but there are no personal relationships. So the missing all that is something that hurts the collaboration right now, and it cannot be very clear and very public on the surface.
Yes, thank you. Maybe to Sarit, as a former IDF officer, we hear that Israel is spreading too many fronts. Why do you think it takes so long for Israel to start dealing with the northern border? And isn't Israel not spreading too many fronts to win the wars that they need to win?
Of course, if all these fronts were full scale, it would be a much greater challenge. I think that Israel waited for two reasons. First, because we didn't want to have a full-scale war in two fronts. And once the IDF announced that Gaza is basically done with regard to military maneuvering, it's not done with regard to bringing the hostages back, it was possible to reach out to the Lebanese front. Yet, I think that it took us too long to end up with Gaza. We were delayed. It took us too long to look up north, and this means that 60,000 Israelis are out of their homes in the past year, and 200,000 more are under the daily threat of the fire of Hezbollah, like myself. This is up until the point that Israel moved to offensive. Since then, it's much more than that. And I think that we should have done that before, and the reason we didn't is also because we had a lot of pressure, international pressure, to reach to a diplomatic arrangement, but actually Hezbollah was not even willing to negotiate. So there was nothing. And I must tell you that the statement that came out from the United States, I truly don't understand it. Last Thursday, just before the elimination of Nasrallah, that called for a pause of 21 days was extremely dangerous statement, and I'm very happy that it's off the table. Not because I'm against diplomatic arrangement, but because I'm against a pause that do nothing but giving a present to Hezbollah and enable it to recover.
Let's just make sure that we had that Israel was at ceasefire on October 6th. We're on a total ceasefire, so we haven't launched anything.
No, we haven't launched, but afterwards we did attack is in response to what Hezbollah has been doing, but we attacked in an offensive scale, and we didn't prevent the daily shooting, and Nasrallah said himself that he's not going to stop, no matter what, only if there is a ceasefire in Gaza. So I think that we should have done that before, and we had a lot of international pressure, and international pressure should be imposed on terrorist organizations. And a pause in fighting give a lot of opportunities to the terrorist organizations to recover. We must remember that.
And I think it's important, Sarit, we haven't speak a lot deeply to analyze the human shield strategy, but we don't play by the same rules, we don't play by the same book, we don't play by the same laws. So I think it's very important that when you look at Israel, we are a democratic country that is evaluated by a legal system, is judged by the International Court of Justice, and we are happy to answer the question because we are a democratic country, while the organization don't need to answer anyone or anybody. I saw your question. I just want to say something. I think it's the first time in history that we saw when the ground invasion started in Lebanon last night. It's the first time we don't have, I would say, the second front, which is the Gaza front, that start launching rockets out of all of cities in the south. And I think that this is something that we haven't seen in the past 20 years in Israel for all the citizens living in Sderot, in Ashkelon, in dozens of cities. They should feel something. Wow, something has been achieved. We still need to bring back the hostages, but the Hamas military ring that was running the operation is not active anymore the way it was before. So I think this is the first win that we have, and I think the world should feel well about this. That's one.
By the way, if you look at the history in the past 20 years, you will see that our enemies are dragging us to two fronts wars all the time. In 2000, the kidnapping of two Israeli soldiers from the Lebanese border was hand in hand with the Second Intifada and the riots on October. And in 2006, the kidnapping of two Israeli soldiers from Lebanon was right after the kidnapping of Gilad Shalit in the Gazian border.
Now, there is a $1 million question that was being asked here a few times. What Israel will do with Iran? Not it's an open one. I don't know if only Eric or Sarit, you have an answer. I don't have an answer. I can suggest to Israel what to do, but
it seems like Natalie has an answer.
I wanted to answer another question if I could do so very quickly.
Yes.
There was a question
but
of
then the three of you needs to think about what Israel will answer, because I think that at the end of the day, we have legislators here on the call, we have representative and official elected. They try to defend Israel and to speak on our behalf, and they would like to know what's happening. I don't know if anyone will know because of secrecy and things like that, but we love to hear your thoughts. Please, Natalie.
The question was, is there any sense of percentage of Lebanese and Iranians who support Israel? I would think the collateral damage from the war will make Israel less popular. I can't necessarily speak on behalf of the Lebanese people, but on behalf of the Iranian people, I think people need to understand the amount of Iranians that were killed by their own regime on a daily basis, especially since the killing of Masa Amini, just for not covering their hair, just for not following whatever rules the Islamic regime had put into place. So I think people need to understand the daily life that Iranians are living under is not a life worth living. The reason they're taking to the streets and risking their own lives, they know that they're risking their lives by singing in public, by dancing in public, by not covering their hair. If they're willing to risk their life just by showing their hair, that just shows how much they're suffering under the Islamic regime. So I think it's important to understand that they see Israel as their only sense of hope. They understand that there's going to be collateral damage, but that's better than the life that they're living in right now.
Thank you, Natalie.
If I answer the Lebanese side of the question, we don't see a change in the base of Hezbollah. Those who were against Hezbollah in Lebanon are still against Hezbollah, and those who were for Hezbollah are still for Hezbollah. Clearly, killing of Lebanese doesn't give more support to Israel. I totally understand this comment. But at the same time, if I have to choose between my life to their life, I'm sorry. I feel in the most personal level threatened by the plans of Radwan, and we have to deal with it.
You escaped the questions, Sarit. What Israel will do? Ori.
I don't know what Israel will do. I know what I want Israel to do. I totally agree with you that this is once in a lifetime opportunity that was created here that was not even expected. And I hope we are prepared enough to do what's needed with regard to the nuclear facilities.
Eric?
Sure. Well, when it comes to Iran, what the outcome will be is anybody's guess right now. But by Israel hitting them very strongly militarily, they're giving an opportunity for the people on the streets in Iran to stand up once again and not miss the opportunity that we had 2 years ago. But they're also giving an opportunity to Western governments to look at it. There's this policy always of letting everyone kind of save face. Everyone has to win in some sense. But perhaps at this point, they'll step back from that and put some more pressure on the Iranian regime to hopefully help it fall with the help of the people in the streets. So that's really anybody's guess, but hopefully that will be the strategic outcome.
Ori, your final words?
The one thing I'm afraid of is
we can't hear you well. If you can try to speak in front of your microphone. I don't know where it is.
The one thing I'm afraid of is that someone convinces the Israeli leadership that they can actually redesign the entire Middle East on their own. We tried to do it about 40 years ago in Lebanon by basically crowning our own pro-Israeli president. And he was assassinated after a few days, and Syria took over, and basically Lebanon slipped out of Israel's hands for many years until today. So if we couldn't do it with a small country like Lebanon, we definitely are not capable of changing the entire regime or completely changing on our own the political reality in Iran. The one thing we should be doing is first is securing the situation of Israel's security in northern Israel and southern Lebanon. We can do it, by the way, We can do it, but there are three necessary steps that we have to achieve. One of them is eliminating and destroying the combat structure of Hezbollah that can directly fire at Israeli villages and towns inside Israel. So we have to eliminate that. This is one. The second thing is that we have to thicken or to enlarge or to strengthen the international presence in Lebanon. And some of those countries are going to be guaranteeing to the arrangement. They will give guarantee to any security arrangement. And we're talking here about Western countries, such as the United States, such as France, such as Britain, and so on. And Israel will have freedom of operation to prevent the re-ammunition of Hezbollah and the re-establishment of its own military infrastructure in Lebanon. These are the three necessary terms for any possible arrangement. Anything.
Thank you. Okay, so let me just check if we have another question. As I remember everyone online, we are not in the formal briefing, we are in an informal conversation. So I will just end with a statement saying that tomorrow in Israel we celebrate the Jewish New Year, which is called Rosh Hashanah. We're starting this new year with a heavy heart as Israelis, but also the Jewish people, because it's approaching the holiday of Simchat Torah, when we celebrate the Torah that we receive from God. Why it's so hard? Because on the night after Simchat Torah, October 7 happened, and we're arriving right now in this period that will take a full month when we know exactly what happened a year ago. So tomorrow we're going to celebrate the new year. Hopefully we're going to meet our friends and family. We don't know what's happening during this night. We don't know what's going to be the next 2-3 hours, but we know definitely that we have an army ready to defend ourselves. We have allies that are working with us, and we heard the statement from the White House tonight. They're working together to defend Israel at every cost, and that's very important to know that we have friends and allies. And I think that today, when we're gonna sleep as Israelis, we are confident that we have people to support us tonight, not like it was during the Holocaust 80 years ago. So I think that when we have the Iranian regime trying to destroy us, we know that it's not going to happen. I think this is a good sentiment that we need to have, and we need to go with ourselves. So I would like to wish to everyone Shana Tova, which means Happy New Year in Hebrew, to everyone, that we have a better year than last year. I think last year was very tough, and we know that we have got a conflict ongoing with soldiers fighting for us in the front line, that we wish them, to all of them, to go back home safe, and the hostages, the 101 hostages still in Gaza, to be released, and that's an imperative process. So thank you everyone for your support. Thank you for listening to us, supporting us, and we hope that this briefing was educational for you and you learned something today. And if you have any topics, by the way, I really invite you to write to us, to our emails, going to our website. If you have something that you need to know, you want to know, we're happy to set up a special briefing to connect with the relevant people. So we are here for that. So thank you very much, everyone. And thank you to the speakers, Sarit, Natalie, Eric, and Ori. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having us.